People have been going crazy about this.
So last night, news came out that Dragon Age The Veilguard is indeed a financial failure. And the modern audience...
I feel like every single week we find out that another game that everybody knew was going to be garbage that came out actually sold really badly. And it's like a financial failure and people are losing their jobs. It's like every single week this seems to be happening. And this week we got 2 of them.
Shills, they are very upset by this news. And they're making all kinds of coat posts and like rage posts about it. For example, this one that says, the reason why Veilguard didn't sell well. Unpopular opinion, but I think Veilguard's reputation just got damaged by the anti-woke crowd, even before the game came out.
Am I
and we're
going to
read
named?
that full post in just a minute because it looks hilarious.
Oh, no.
But first, let's just get the news real quick. So yeah,
am I
this
gonna
headline
get...
from ITC reads, Dragon Age The Veilguard failed in sales, only got 50% of EA's expectations.
Man.
Half of what they wanted, man. Terrible.
That's bad.
The full write-up, which is only a few brief paragraphs, reads, Electronic Arts shares plummeted by 18%, the biggest drop since 2008. This huge drop came after the company warned that its financial results would be lower than expected due to poor sales results of 2 games. EA put most of the blame for the poor financial results on its football game EA Sports FC 2025, which was released in September and received mixed reviews. This month, the company introduced an update. Another culprit, though, is the role-playing game Dragon Age The Veilguard, which was released in October after a tumultuous development cycle. It reached 1.5 million players during the quarter, falling short of the company's expectations by about 50%. So yeah, this thing was a complete financial failure. How embarrassing, man. Pathetic sales.
Got it.
And then over on Steam, it's also getting worse for Veilguard because the recent review score has dropped all the way down to mixed at only 64%. And the all-time score barely hanging on to its mostly positive rating at 70%.
This is not good. The game's not very good. It's really simple. Like, it's an average game. I think if it was $20, it'd be fine. But for $60 or $70 as a AAA game, nah, bro. Like, it's just not going to happen.
At the rate things are going, that's likely to also fall below 70% and also become a mixed score. Furthermore, as we discussed a few days ago, the Veilguard director, Corinne Bush, also fled the company, leaving BioWare.
Roached out! She roached out. That's what happens. I think that's the most annoying thing. Like, somebody a minute ago was asking, like, who do you think does more damage, immigrants or billionaires? I think that stuff like that is the reason why people ask questions like that. Because it's so fucking annoying. I don't care. I mean, if somebody's trans, they look like a woman, I'll say they're a woman. Guys, I sorry. Like, I'm not going to confuse people. I don't give a fuck. It's not a big deal to me. So anyway, if I saw that, I saw pictures of her. She looks like a woman. Okay? Sorry, you're going to get confused. You're going to get mad about it. I don't want to fucking argue with you guys about this. We talked about it twice before, and people were like trying to correct me. I don't give a shit, okay? I don't care. Like, I really mean that. I do not care. Anyway, point is irrelevant. What I'm saying is that I think that there's a growing frustration that people that are the captains of these ships, instead of riding their ship to the bottom of the ocean, the captain goes down with the ship, the captain's the first one off the ship, and then all the sailors are at the bottom of the fucking ocean. And that's what happens. And so you have people that are in these leadership roles that get, I mean, there's a term for it, it's golden parachute, that they get a golden parachute away from, this position they have, and now they don't have to worry about it at all. The fuckness take responsibility for garbage. Yeah, exactly. It's very annoying. The Concordia, yes. The captain didn't abandon ship. Yeah, and he roached out. The captain roached out like crazy, instantaneously. He was gone.
Timing is just coincidence. Like, Corinne Bush leaves BioWare, and then a few days later, this report comes out that Veilguard was such a financial flop. Of course, there's also a lot of speculation that Bush was kind of forced out over this whole disaster, too. But
it's also a very good point that, yeah, she probably got kicked out. And, they announced, oh, yeah, I'm leaving. Yes, you're leaving because we're kicking you out.
All that speculation, what you will. All right, with that context, that takes us back over to the subreddit for Dragon Age The Veilguard, and this recent top post over there from only 17 hours ago that reads, the reason why Veilguard didn't sell well. Once again from the top, unpopular opinion, but I think Veilguard's reputation just got damaged by the anti-woke crowd even before the game came out. If you go to YouTube and search for Veilguard, you'll see vast majority of the content.
Let's find out about that. We're going to open up an incognito window. Dragon Age The Veilguard. Okay, I'm not sure about this one. Bad. 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 Okay. Yeah, that matters. If you look a game up on YouTube and all the top results are the game being bad, that doesn't look very good. You just say you didn't know about game ranks? What I mean is I didn't watch it. I didn't watch that video, and so I don't know what they said. We didn't even get credit as an army of chuds. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people.
Created for this game is by drama queens who farm hate from every progressive media.
Yes.
Wow, that is some very politically obsessed phrasing right there.
It's true. They're right. The amount of negative videos and negative press that people put out about the game absolutely damaged the game. That's why people put out the negative media and the negative press. That was the goal. Mission accomplished. Duh.
It's pretty telling that they don't even view Veilguard first and foremost as a video game. No, what they view it as first, like the first thing about it, oh, this is progressive media.
Yeah.
Their Veilguard videos are getting the most views and likes. When a potential customer sees this negative environment online, their first thought would be, maybe this game isn't worth buying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I think that people really downplay the effect that, for example, seeing a video game trailer and then reading the comments and every comment being negative has. It's insanely bad. Like, yeah, that's the point of watching a review video. Yes, exactly. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, so that's a good thing.
The non-binary,
why would you want potential customers to waste their money on a game they probably won't even enjoy? Some like AAA, HR in the room, modern audience slop. It's hilarious how they're phrasing this as if the critics of Veilguard are in the wrong, when in reality they're just making us all sound based. I especially love how...
It doesn't matter whether somebody is wrong or not. It matters whether somebody's message is getting put out there and people are agreeing with it or not. People get too fixated on the moral authority of whatever perspective they have, and it causes them to lose sight of reality and make decisions that are not based on anything other than their feelings. And that's why they fail, because they're making decisions for what they want things to be rather than what they are.
They're trying to act like they're some like progressive individual, and yet the reality of what they're explaining here is that gamers have caused a massive corrupt corporation to lose a bunch of money, and they're upset at that. These sort of people always LARP as if they're like revolutionaries, but they're the biggest corpo defenders out there. They also never seem to realize that. It's a complete lack of self-awareness. And
I think that they don't realize they're not corpo defenders. I don't agree that they're corpo defenders. I think that they do have this ideology, but they don't realize that the corpo is doing it because they have the ideology and not because the corpo cares about the ideology. The same corporations that are talking about how much they care about diversity are now destroying their diversity groups and then firing every single person in the department. So if they really cared about it, then they probably wouldn't have deleted it the moment that the culture shift happened. It's very clearly not what's happening. Yeah, right. It's matching ideologies. Yeah, well, like these ideologies that these companies have, these companies are effectively parasites that latch themselves onto different types of cultures that are happening and cultural movements that are happening. And then they use them in order to push an agenda. And they do this with memes too. You guys know, like every time there's like a brand account and there's a popular meme, and brand accounts try to like take advantage of the meme, and like 90% of the time it's cringe. They're just parasites. That's all. It's that simple. And they function exactly like parasites. They take from the host, and anything that the host gets out of the parasite is purely incidental and never by design.
The post, they say, people always say stuff like this doesn't affect sales much, but I really do think it's having an effect. especially in recent years, where hating on progressive games, movies, and TV shows has become such a popular thing to do. Like I basically said earlier, this is such a pathetic way of acting.
Well, if it's a really popular thing to do, you should ask yourself the question, why are you making media that's supposed to be popular in an audience that doesn't reflect that view?
Where they see a corporation pandering to their political views, and then they're instantly compelled to eat slop right up, no matter how terrible the underlying media itself is. I think
this is also another big issue that people have, and I think it's something that the right wing does a bad job with, but I think the left wing probably does worse of a job with, is that they're not able to rein in extremists and rein in people that are just kind of crazy, basically. And I think that not being able to self-regulate causes yourself to get an increasingly more extreme version of whatever your movement is until it no longer represents enough people to be meaningful.
So the OP reading, not an unpopular opinion on this sub, I don't think. More so on the main Dragon Age sub. Quick side note, because I know we interrupted this whole post thing quite a lot, but the OP did have that introduction where they said unpopular opinion, right? So that's what they're referring to there. Continuing.
It's not an unpopular opinion. It's an inconvenient opinion. Everybody knows it's true, but people don't want it to be.
This person says, and I agree with you, the clicks culture on YouTube is a pervasive rot. Top response to that saying, main Dragon Age sub has been infected with bigots for months now. And then this response says, wish the mods there would remove any post that remotely has bigoted dog whistles. I can't even read this seriously, bro. Sometimes people in the comments ask why I read comments like this in the voice that I do, and I just read them the way I think they sound. These people sound so whiny and weird to me, so it just naturally, that's the voice I kind of speak in when I read their comments. And
I mean, a lot of the people, the thing is, Reddit has become such a... it's like the mental health marketplace. I see so many people that are just so unhinged on that website now. And I feel like it's just getting worse and worse and worse. I'll read comments and it won't even be about streaming. It'll just be about different conversations. And people are just so weird. I don't understand how it happened, but it's just I feel like that's what happens when you just kind of increasingly, it's you have a culture of censorship and increasingly more self-radicalization that happens over time. And then after 10 years, you become Reddit. I think that's what happened because X is so normal and now get real. Well, the difference with X is that there's a balance of opinions. So there's unhinged people on X, but I feel like on Reddit, the difference is that it's curated. So you would naturally expect to see on an uncurated website that a ton of people would be unhinged. But on Reddit, I feel like it's everywhere.
Doesn't help that I'm also just laughing a lot of the time when I read this stuff too. I mean, these people are ridiculous. So let me try this again. It says, wish the mods there would remove any post that remotely has bigoted dog whistles. The Avowed sub has done a good job with that, so the Dragon Age sub shouldn't have much trouble doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man. Literally advocating for the other subs to be censored the same way the Veilguard sub is and the Avowed sub.
Well, that's what they want, right? Because this is, and I think it goes to show, right, is that these are people that they know that if this type of thinking gets out and people start feeling this way, people will turn against it. And I think that that's probably the big reason why, it's one of the big reasons why I think it's very damaging when you just delete everybody else's opinion. And I mean, I think it's very fair to delete opinions that are hostile or, openly, I don't know, using racial slurs or something like that. Sure. Yeah, of course. But whenever you're talking about just people that are trying to have a conversation about something and you're deleting conversations about it and people can't talk about that, well, I think that usually there's a reason for it. Can we get back to this idea that you think Twitter has both sides? Yeah, sure. The reason why I think that is because of every observable metric possible and also my own personal experience, not to mention CNN's viewpoint on it as well. CNN did data on it, and they said that Twitter actually was one of the most balanced platforms. And also, it depends on what it also depends on who you interact with, right? And so like some people are going to get a different experience with Twitter than others.
And they're like applauding that. For the record, obviously, what this person is referring to as a bigoted dog whistle is things as simple as like criticizing BioWare in this context, or criticizing Tosh. Like, if you were to say you think Tosh is not written well, they would refer to you as an instant bigot. They would want you banned from the subreddits. You know how it is. And then there's this top post from today, from only 2 hours ago, that says, addressing the anti-woke crowd. I wonder if they realize how much their indiscriminate negativity and dogpiling lessens their power as consumers. I love how one of the top posts blames the quote-unquote...
What does it say again?
Lesson.
Veilguard could replace it. Dogpiling lessens their power as consumers. It incredibly increases it. It massively increases it. The thing is that every single time that a game like this fails after a huge amount of negative controversy, it terrifies every other company into not wanting to attract that negative controversy. And you're seeing that across all media. Like, for example, like Disney getting rid of like that, I think it was Pixar, maybe, I don't remember exactly, like getting rid of like some trans scene. They're terrified of it. Because it's like, I mean, really, like, I mean, it's effectively marketing that's like bad marketing. They're terrified of you covering the games? Well, yeah. I mean, do you mean lessons? Yeah, lesson. Like, well, what they mean to say is it lowers their power. Not like it teaches them a lesson about their power. And Terrify is the same tactic that SBI uses? Yeah, exactly. It is. And so, no, I think that these companies are really afraid of it. And I think that becomes very evident that they try to hide these different types of features until the game comes out. And I think that you're probably going to see games that are effectively using the fact that they're not using different types of like woke type of content. They're probably going to start using it as advertising. And I think a great example of that is Lords of the Fallen recently, is that they did a thing where they were like, yeah, we're going to revert back to male and female instead of body type 1 and 2. Like, you have to keep in mind that every single thing that a brand does is in some way or another a form of marketing. They're doing that because they think that will get people to play their game more. So it's working. They're terrified to lose money? Yeah, exactly. They don't want to lose money.
Since their power as consumers. I love how one of the top posts blames the quote-unquote anti-woke crowd for ruining Veilguard's reputation and causing it low sales or whatever. And then this one's like, the anti-woke crowd are losing their power as consumers. Yeah. Veilguard could have launched with an all-white, all-straight male cast and it would still have problems. Veilguard could replace its entire team with straight white men and it would still have problems.
That's true.
What a weird straw man. Like, who's even asking for that? People are simply critiquing the game for very valid reasons. Yeah. For example, you can go over to Steam and take a look at the long list of negative reviews from people who did buy the game and didn't like it, where there's all sorts of different criticisms. For example, this negative review in part says, this game forces me to be the therapist of a cast of characters that are unlikable adult babies, who feel like they came from a Disney movie in the worst way possible. Or this one, for example, that says, romances are laughable in this game. BioWare was once so known for writing good RPG romances that I genuinely struggle to believe these romances are from the same company. Or this one that in part says, I cannot in good conscience recommend this game to anyone, especially not Dragon Age or even BioWare fans. I'm shocked that the most prevalent criticism of Veilguard is not the abandonment of the world state import. And the reason I keep saying in part while I read these sections of these reviews is because these people wrote like mini essays.
Of course,
in other words, I'm reading a tiny fraction.
Yeah, no, like the Veilguard, the Veilguard, like the subreddit looked like a bunch of twit-longers. As soon as this information dropped, everybody was writing out these massive essays explaining why the game was a complete failure.
Of these full negative reviews. And these people have extremely well thought out and very detailed explanations for why they don't like the game. This is a recurring theme on a lot of the negative reviews for Veilguard, and once again, you can find this all over on Steam. And one thing they're not all crying about is, oh, we just wanted the game to have all straight white male characters. So once again, the shills for this game are acting extremely politically brain-rotted and just really weird. Really, really weird. It doesn't end
I think that there's absolutely a factor of identity politics that goes into this, and I don't think it should be overstated or understated, but it should be acknowledged that, yes, I do think that that's present. It definitely is present, but he's right that even if Dragon Age didn't have any of these problems, the game would still be bad. It has some effect. Yeah, it does. Companies are still, we're reaching a glass roof. Companies are slowly realizing the audience that was sold as a gigantic by Militus is actually just a small portion of real world people. I hope they'll continue this way. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen too. Do you think this is the fault of the hands-off approach? I think it's the fault of people that push ideologies that can't be criticized publicly. So it creates a culture of toxic positivity where nobody wants to be the person in the room that says, let's not add the scene about being non-binary, because that's going to cause people to, like, I think a really good example of this is, like, if you look at the way that I've covered the election and, like, the way that I've covered different political and social events, and now I'm being maligned as a Nazi. Well, do you think that's good or bad? That's bad. And so for me, it doesn't really matter because what's going to happen, right? There's going to be somebody comes in a chat and they're like, oh, I can't believe you said they just banned it. It doesn't even matter. But if you work in a company and you're being treated this way, well, there's a really good chance that you're going to lose your job. And so the difference is that these people, they don't have the privilege that I have to just be basically self-employed. So they have to operate inside of a world where if they disagree with these people will completely misrepresent, malign their reputation, and systematically work to destroy their life. So, yeah, that's the reason why it keeps getting pushed. It's because people like that infect these types of groups, and then anybody who goes against them gets labeled as something that's awful. Do you see kind of what I'm saying? They're racist against you as a German American. We should cancel them. Look, you see kind of what I'm saying, right? Like, I'm just using myself as an example.
Returning to the post, they go on to make 7 different lines of text, all prefaced with the issue, where they go on to talk about a number of production issues that Veilguard faced internally at BioWare. Much of this stuff being things that I discussed in my prior videos about Veilguard. And yet, even then, this person doesn't really get some of this stuff right. For example, they say, the issue with Veilguard is that for the past decade, EA has attempted to maximize its profits by launching live service games that go against everything BioWare stands for as a company. The problem with this is that Veilguard itself was being created as a live service game at some point, but there's no evidence to suggest that that was entirely the doing of EA, as this post is trying to make it sound like. As a matter of fact, it was Gary McKay who took over as the BioWare GM who began to switch the production of Veilguard from live service back to single player. Therefore, the fact that it was a BioWare executive who was able to make the switch for Veilguard going from live service to single player also implies that when Veilguard was being developed as a live service game, that it was also BioWare's decision to do that. But here we have a Redditor.
Somebody says, I get going after the developers, but why bust enjoyers down for people that enjoy it? The reason why is because they do the same thing. Like, people are being called perverts and weirdos for liking Stellar Blade. So you shouldn't be surprised when those same people have resentment towards people that effectively, like, misrepresented them and demonized them. That's the reason why.
Trying to put all the blame on EA and act like BioWare is completely innocent and can do no wrong. Another example of this is where they say, the issue with Veilguard is that it wasn't given enough time, money, or resources to start over from scratch with the third iteration.
Only given 9 years, right? I mean, come on, what do you expect?
Of the game.
Come on, guys.
It was built on the bones of its previous iteration, an MMO, which isn't conducive to creating the sort of game we expect for the series, but the devs were told to make it work anyway. This is just objectively wrong information. While there was a period of time that Veilguard was being developed as a live service game, as we discussed briefly, it was simply going to have some level of multiplayer components, but not on the level of a full-scale MMO. Furthermore, the argument that BioWare didn't have enough money or resources is not a good argument, considering how many devs have done so much more with their games with so much less. Skipping down to the last section where they also preface it with the issue. They say, the issue with
That's also another thing that I think a lot of people are discovering, is that you have, like, these studios that are, thanks for the gifted subs, guys. Thank you. They can spend any way they want there. They can't honestly deny it was an extremely bad game, despite the gaslighting. Yeah, and to be fair, it does look like a pseudo-online game made in a single player. No, I think it's true. But, like, when you see games that are developed for, like, much smaller budgets, and then you look at a game like this, I think that this is kind of what I was saying before about how AAA gaming is, like, becoming too big to succeed. where it's just so over-designed. There's so many layers of red tape. There's so much like bureaucracy involved that the creative mindset that goes into it, by the time that it actually is implemented into the game, it's completely distorted and removed.
Is that EA wasted 10 years with their heads up their behinds, no direction, and constantly moving goalposts that are impossible to achieve. You can see again how this person's trying to put all the blame on EA and acting like BioWare is completely innocent. But they go on to say, and now the issue with Veilguard and BioWare in general is that there are a host of angry, red-pilled netizens who don't even know what they should be angry about or what their demand should be. Instead, they point fingers at women and minorities who really don't and never had the sort of power that people think they do.
This is the problem that a lot of these people have, is that they argue from the perspective of their own type of judgment, and they don't think about it from the perspective of anybody else. I think that many of these people have basically what's performative empathy, where their idea of empathy is doing things to people to make themselves look good. But the reality is that if you understand the way that another person thinks, you can understand that they might not have the same values and the same type of, like, basically tier system of importance that you do. So a lot of these people get fixated on the reality of something without looking at the perception of it. If people's perception is that this is the case, for them, that's what they're going to make a decision off of. And you're not going to be able to tell them that they can't have that opinion because you've decided that it is wrong. It's a very childish viewpoint to have. And I think that basically that's why you have a lot of this friction that happens. Does that mean empathy? Well, I'm looking at things from a perspective that I think makes sense. Right? That's about it. I mean, I don't know what else I can do, but that's the way I see it.
Another pathetic strawman there. This whole post is full of objectively false information and strawman arguments, and of course tries to come off like some sort of champion for minorities as they overtly try and gaslight people. Buddy, you're really not doing much to help anyone when you're acting like some sort of deceptive liar, some sort of terminally online Redditor. Their post ends by saying, "My advice to fans." Oh yeah, just what the fans needed. Advice from this weirdo. Great. Be intentional and be specific about the things you want in the next game. Don't just post angry ravings about DEI or woke things.
People do. But when they do, then you say that they're racist or sexist. So they did. But then they get banned on Reddit because you can't say that on Reddit. But the problem is that banning them on Reddit doesn't make them buy the game. It just makes them go to another platform and get more radicalized and be more determined to make you fail. And I think this is another example of it succeeding. It worked. Both of them to assume that there's going to be a next game? Yeah, exactly. You're right.
Actually look at the game and identify what is missing that you want to be there next time. Advocate for less corporate interference. Demand better production. And always support the developers and writers who you see on social media, because the actual movers and shakers at huge gaming companies are people you'll never meet or hear about, but they're happy to let those public-facing devs and writers take the heat when things go south. Be aware of your power as a consumer and be specific about what you want. Oh my gosh, bro.
I think that this person's kind of right about what they're saying, and the more specific that you can be, the better. I think that for any developer, if you're going to add in any type of gender dynamics that are not male and female, you are introducing yourself into an extremely divisive political issue. And involving divisive political issues in your video games is your right as an artist, and you have every right to do that. But don't be surprised when divisive political issues divide people, and then people choose not to buy your game because they don't want to be involved with them. And I think that's the big issue that these people have, is that, like, there are these issues that happen and they want to put them in the game, then do it. But, like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can have these things in the game, or you can have a game that sells well to a mass audience. But you can't take fringe ideology, mass produce it, and then expect people to mass buy it. So that's the issue. And I think that there's a couple of other instances, like if you're race swapping a character, I think this is another one. If there's a character in a video game that is traditionally always one race, and then you race swap that character or you gender swap that character, you should expect to see people that are frustrated and angry about that because it's a divisive issue. Now, you might think that it shouldn't be a divisive issue, and that does nothing because it still is. So, and this is the race swapping is forbidden Exodia. Yeah, exactly, right? And like Aragorn. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think about that one, and there's a few other examples of this too. And some of these issues, like, for example, like pronouns. Pronouns are very divisive. Like, pronouns, and this is especially true with non-gender binary pronouns. So any pronouns beyond he and him or she and her, this is an extremely divisive issue, and the inclusion of even pronouns as a function is divisive. It's very evidently divisive based off of how many people express the fact that they care about it. So you can say that people shouldn't care about it. You can say that it shouldn't be an issue and this should be okay. That's totally fine. But they still won't buy the game. Even they? Yeah, nobody, absolutely. Remember the marketing? There was like a big Trump, what do you call it? There's like a very big Trump commercial, basically, right? Promotion that said, you know, Kamala's for, you know, they, them, and, you know, and Trump is for you, basically, right? I think that was a really, really strong argument for a lot of people because a lot of people are uncomfortable with like the breakdown of a gender binary. It is a genius ad. Yeah, it's a genius ad. And absolutely. Now, again, you might think that this is transphobic. You might think that this is bigoted. You might think that all of these things are true. But at the end of the day, if you try to sell a game, here's a great example. If you try to sell a game and it's an entire black cast in China, you're going to have a really hard time. And you can say the Chinese are racist and they're bad and they shouldn't think that way. And you can be totally right, but you're still not going to sell the game. And so if you want to basically conscript a bunch of people into a suicide mission for their studio, engage with these topics at your own demise. But I think that it's very obvious that many people have spoken very loudly that they don't want to see this stuff. They're not interested in it. And if games put it in, people will be less likely to buy it. That's it. Then why did Wukong do so well? Because Wukong didn't have any type of messaging like that at all. There was no like controversial contemporary politics in Black Myth Wukong. Yeah, there was none. It's a fucking monkey. Yeah, exactly.
To be one of the biggest bootlicker posts I've seen. Holy smokes. I wouldn't be surprised if this person was internally working at BioWare or something. At the same time, we've seen how plenty of these sort of modern audience types of people are just like this by default anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking like maybe he's trying to make like a black people monkey correlation. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but mods, you might want to check his logs and maybe ban that guy. But yeah, it could be that. I thought about that. I just didn't want to, really talk about it. But yeah.
We'll take a look at the top response from just 1 hour ago, and then we're going to wrap it up there because that's enough brain rot. But yeah, let's take a look at this. It says, as much as I appreciate the sentiment, I find this to be preaching to the choir a little bit. I think the people who are subscribed here have no illusion about why Veilguard has the shortcomings that it does.
Yeah.
Another thing is we need to stop reasoning with the anti-woke people because they don't ever start or enter a conversation with reason. Spreading misery online is their only chance at being seen or heard in their lives. So any engagement, even if you unequivocally dunk on them, is giving them what they want. They don't like Dragon Age. They don't like games. They don't like anything really. They only engage because they see someone enjoying something and they can't have that. It's truly ironic.
Man. It's too bad, huh? Yeah. It's too bad. You can definitely have political or divisive topics and conversations in games. But see, the thing with Metal Gear Solid as an example is that there aren't really a lot of fans of the way that most people are not fans of the military-industrial complex. That's the difference. They're not fans with shadow governments and, like the military-industrial complex and hidden deals and paying off senators. That's what I was talking about being divisive. Metal Gear Solid isn't divisive, it's political. It's the same reason why Metaphor was popular. People don't generally like racism, at least here in the West. Most people do not like racism. They might be vaguely racist, but I think that most people have a distaste of institutional racism. And so games that criticize that and put that in a respectful context and provide commentary on it will be appreciated by this type of a community. You're covering something that's generally accepted as bad. Gender ideology is only accepted and toted by a small group of people. Exactly. It is. And that's the issue, is that, like, how many people do you think agree that, like, you can be non-binary versus how many people do you think agree that the military-industrial complex is bad? I wonder which one casts a wider net. It's just, again, common sense. It's also the implicit lecturing. Yeah.
Ironic how this person talks about seeing things with objective reason as they simultaneously act like a post with objectively false information is the truth, and then acting like people who criticize Dragon Age the Veilguard just don't like video games at all and don't like anything. What an insane thing to say.
Yeah, we hate all video
equally
games.
As insane is their whole thing about, like, these people have never been seen or heard in their lives. They just want to spread misery and can't let anyone enjoy anything. You know, all that really weird stuff they said.
It's all personal. It's all this, like, personal, emotional thinking. It's not there's no, like, it's not productive in any way. There's no real, like, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think, like, what the word for that is. Like, there's just nothing going on there. It's just not logical. Yeah, it's just somebody basically, you know, it's the way that they feel. Desperate vilification, exactly. Yeah, there's no substance. There's no, you know, logic to it or anything. It's just an outburst.
Yeah, that's definitely enough brain rot. I'm going to leave it there. The point of all this is to say that based on today's news, it is now officially confirmed that Veilguard is a financial failure. And as you can see, the modern audience types are freaking out and becoming crazier than ever, like going full aggro rabid mode. So yeah, let me know what you think about all that stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Oh yeah, they're very upset.
If you enjoyed my coverage, please consider liking and or subscribing. I appreciate your support, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.
I think also these people are not stupid in a lot of cases. They're just simply misled, and they have different viewpoints. And so what ends up happening is that I think that they realize the fact that when a game like this fails massively, it absolutely hurts the entire, like, their entire movement. I think that they're aware of the optics of this. And that's why they're also trying to defend it, is because when a game like this fails and then it's shown to be a failure, they're like, oh my God, this is our ideology and it's dying. You know, somebody asked the question, I saw this during the video, I didn't want to cover it until I finished. But there's the video. Give it a like. That's a really, really, really good video. I liked it a lot. And I found it to be very funny. The Matt Darath posted from BioWare. No, I didn't. I'd have to see it myself. You'd have to link it to me. And brain rot delusional people. Well, they have an agenda, right? And that's what's more important to them. Why do people think that insulting the opposite side is going to make them want to vote for them in the next election? Because objecting to those insults was not allowed. That's the reason why. And also because it was working. Like, during COVID, you had a pretty much, like, at least from, like, my, adult life, probably the highest level of restriction on speech and thought that I've pretty much ever seen. And it was universal. It was, with phones. It was with, not really phones, but, like, it was with, like, what do you call it? Like, applications. It was with video games. It was with YouTube. It was with social media. It was with everything. And it was with the government as well. And so, like, you had this, like, unilateral perspective that you couldn't really go against. And I think that because of that, people were convinced and they were lured into a false sense of security that nobody would be able to question these viewpoints ever. And as soon as the questions started rolling in, and I think this happened, by the way, because of Twitter. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, I think that was the turning point. And I think that, like, that was the point where as soon as you have one break in, like, the wall, then the flood begins. And I think that was the break that caused the entire flood and changed everything. Why should we support devs? We only want good games. I don't care about the devs. I hate this crap. Support the devs. I agree with you. And I feel the same way about streamers too. Like, this is why I try not to farm a lot of parasocial stuff. And, you know, like, oh, well, this is the way I feel and all this stuff. And, you know, this is what's going on in my life. And this is so sad or whatever. It's because it's just weird and it's cringe. Like, you guys come here to be entertained, for the content, for fun. I'm sure a lot of you guys like me and you care about me and you care about my well-being. And I really appreciate that. But I also don't want to use that as an excuse to not make sure that you're happy. And so it's just really common sense, right? It's the same as like any time you go to like your barber, right? You go to your barber. I went to a barber about 7 years ago, right? Something like that. And, you know, yes, obviously you care about the guy, but you also want him to cut your fucking hair too. And so it's not like everything is transactional in a way that's unhealthy. So, yeah, I think it's totally fine. And I hate that people want to blame investors when it's the devs that are ruining games. I think why not both? I think it's multiple groups of people that are doing it themselves. So, yeah, exactly. And common sense streamer. I try to be common sense as much as I can. So, yeah. Nope, I'm a hate watcher and a gooner. Get fucked. Okay. All right. And so, yeah, I don't care about you. Entertain me. Yeah. And I get that. I totally understand it. And I think it's a healthy perspective to have, by the way. It's very healthy to have, and I wish more streamers had that perspective. But anyway, somebody asked the question, do content creators have too much power? And the answer to that is, in some cases, actually, I think that they do. But the instance is that you can't really control that. Because even if you can control it, like, there's no functional way you can control that wouldn't be overused or misused. So I think that really the fact is that content creators only have power if the audience gives them that power. And I'll give you some examples. So there have been video games that I've made videos about, right? Like, let me think of an example of a game that my viewers really didn't like, but I thought was a good game. I don't know. Do you guys have any examples? I'm sure that I can think of a couple of them. But what do you guys think? Prince of Persia? Yeah, great example. Thank you. Okay. So I played this game, and so I tried the new Prince of Persia game. Nice, you know, 350k views, everything. There were a lot of people, and the like and dislike is okay, but this is actually a pretty bad ratio for a just gameplay video. And everybody is shitting on the game. Everybody is negative about the game. And so just because I made a video about this game doesn't necessarily mean that everybody in my audience is going to like the game. They're going to think that it's garbage. So this entire concept that's built off of the idea that content creators are these like mastermind, fucking mental, you know, wizards that can control the thoughts and emotions of everybody is total bullshit. The fact is that, and you'll see this with Kingdom Come Deliverance, by the way, there have been a number of content creators that have made it effectively their job to shit on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 for a number of creative decisions that they chose to make. I'm not going to get into too much of that or anything else, but my point is that those people will not have probably that big of an influence on the sales of the game. They won't. Yeah, they're not going to have that big of an influence. And the reason why is because the movement for it is, it's just simply irrelevant. People just don't care.